Hello, I'm Jackie Jones of Jones & Associates Law PC, your family fixer, and thank you for joining me today as we discuss child support during COVID-19. Now, I want to begin with a little bit of update about what's going on, particularly here in Pennsylvania and especially in Delaware County where I am, but I don't want to date this video by making it too COVID specific, and the reason I say that is because we know that at least now we know that pandemics can happen and they can change things and they can be repeating. And so some of the information I'm giving is for now, but some of these things that I'm going to talk about are going to be general principles that you need to know not only during this pandemic, but in the coming months as things begin to change. So let's begin with the first thing. As many of you know, Governor Wolf, and this is just yesterday, later than many of us expected, the governor decided that he was closing all non-essential businesses as of 8 p.m. yesterday evening. And according to the list, lawyers are non-essential. I can sleep in. No, I can't. And the reason I can't sleep in is because even though the governor has said that lawyers are generally not essential, there are legal issues coming up, including the fact that he plans to enforce this by threat of police and other agencies, which means that lawyers will be necessary. Additionally, the Supreme Court has said that all Pennsylvania courts are closed until at least April 3rd. However, we also have orders from our local courts under their own emergency order that has to do with things like protections from abuse, emergency criminal arraignments, and other matters that may be deemed an emergency. Why? Because even though there is a global pandemic, I love saying global pandemic, to remind us that it's not just us, but even though there's a global pandemic, we are in a situation where there are some things that can't stop, and that includes people's rights. There are people who are sitting in jail. I got a call from someone today. I may be able to get a time served deal to get them out so that this particular client can shelter in place with his family instead of being in a crowded jail where it's like a cesspool and petri dish, and I know that they're doing their best right now to try to contain any outbreaks and spreads, but it's a concern. Now, one of my friends asked me to do this video, and I thought it was an amazing idea because one of the things that comes up is that there are people who still have financial obligations, and I'm talking specifically things like child support and spousal support during this time. There are also people who depend on their child or spousal support to live, and they're worried because they may or may not be able to go to work, and they don't know what they're going to do if this is not functioning. Well, first and foremost, there are still some essential state functions that are functioning. So if you are sending your support in, there's likely someone who's going to be there to receive it, and they're going to be able to transmit it and get it to the person who needs it. There's going to be a skeleton's crew on many of these court functionings and many of these state functionings, which means it may take longer, but money can still be transmitted as it's needed. Now, that's one thing to think about. The other thing to think about, besides just whether or not it can get there, is what happens if you are in a situation where you've lost your job and you are required to pay child support, right? Well, here's the deal. Orders have not been suspended. What does that mean? That means that you still have a current order and obligation to pay. However, enforcement of most of those orders is going to be ultimately suspended. But there are some things that you can do. And just drop me a line, wave, say you're here, give me some talking points back because I just like to feel like we're connected. But for instance, if you are someone who has lost their job due to COVID-19 or some other economic downturns, I would suggest you contact your lawyer and consider something like filing for a modification. Now, generally speaking, those of you who've been through this know that not working is not going to get you a full modification. They'll say, well, you can get another job or you can try. Well, right now, you can't even go to work, right? Your job may be such that you're not allowed to go to work, and it may be such that it won't be up and running for a long time. Let's say you are a server and you can't serve people. My puppy's trying to get in, sorry. You're a server and you can't serve it. Hey, Dave, thank you for saying hello. You can't serve. You can't go into your job. Well, you're not going to be able to work and you're not going to be able to make tips. And even if you get unemployment may not cover the tips. So that is going to be a problem, right? Now, think about that in terms of how do I take care of my own household, let alone how do I help my children. Now, one of the things you should consider, especially if you're on the other side of it and you go, wait a second, my ex is no longer working. I knew that was one of those kind of jobs. They're doing something that's considered non-essential and it's closed. What are some things, hey Josie, what are some things that you can do? For one, essential right now are people in offices that deal with things like Medicaid, that deal with it's the Human Resources Department, so they deal with Medicaid, they deal with food stamps, they deal with cash assistance, the welfare office, as we usually call it. They are essential and they are working, which means you should immediately apply. And I know this is something that people are not like, oh, should I do that? I'm going to do it. Why am I going to do it? Because I don't have a regular job. I don't have a regular salary. I'm not going to get paid in 2 weeks on a regular schedule. And I'm a single parent of 2 children. What matters to me is making sure that my children and I have health care and that we have food if there's an emergency, and if there needs to be cash, which I don't know at this point that I'd even qualify for or need, but I want to make sure that I apply, because if there's something coming, I want to make sure that my children have what they need. Now, that may be shocking to you because you may think, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't need the government. This is what the government is for. For all the people who say, I don't want to welch off the system. Well, when you worked for years and you paid into it, this is actually what the system is for. It's meant for emergency situations when you are unable to take care of yourself. I don't know what's going to happen, but at this point, mortgages are still due. And I don't want, obviously, the sheriffs to come and try to evict us from our home. So I'm stacking as much of my leftover cash to go to things like mortgages. Right now, the utilities won't be shut off, I hear, at least till May. So I'm not worried as much about, do I have to pay for my electric? I can work something out with them after this. My water sales to be going, I can work something after this. I'm not paying or worrying about things like credit cards at this point. If need be, I can pay after this. But right now, I have to pay for my own health insurance, and it's pretty steep. And so I can't afford to pay after this because I can't afford to get ill and get sick or not have my medication because I have a chronic condition. So I take medication every month. So I have to have money for medication copays, and I have to have money for my insurance. And therefore, if I need to apply for assistance for food or healthcare for the children, I'm going to do it. And that's what I urge you to do. So those are just some ways to deal with the fact that you may be in a situation where you can't pay that the way that you need to. But instead of just waiting, and some of you may wait, some of you may have a job where you're going to get up and running, you're going to pay, you're going to have the money, and you may just say, okay, I'm just going to pay limited payments for a while. Pay at least limited payments. If you are making money still, and you can pay your regular bill, feel free, please do. I mean, that's what the courts would prefer. But if you have to cut that because you have, let's say, stockpiling costs you extra money, and you're not used to stockpiling food, or you're not getting overtime. You used to get overtime, it was based on overtime, and now you have to pay less. Pay a consistent amount every week, every 2 weeks, every month, however you usually pay. So let's say that I no longer am getting a paycheck because of COVID-19, but I do have some unemployment income. Well, I'm not going to pay unemployment. Maybe let's say it's 80% of what I get. Well, maybe I'll pay 80% of my order. Or maybe I'll pay 50% of my order because I have these additional expenses related to this outbreak. Just be consistent, because when we go into court, I will argue this person was affected by the pandemic and they made a concerted effort to pay. Now, let's say you were in another situation, and this is the one that is probably scary to many of us. We all know people are never going to go back to some jobs. We all know that some jobs will not exist after this, and we need to be realistic. This is not a 2-week thing. We should stop pretending it's a 2-week thing. It's not. It's been going on for months. Just because America's just getting it doesn't mean that we haven't learned from the world and people who are dying. So because this is going to be longer than a 2-month thing, what I would suggest to you is that you file a petition. Now, the courts are largely closed. However, prior to the closing, the Domestic Relations Office set up something where we would be allowed, and this is Delaware County specifically right now, even though other counties are setting up different things, where we'd be allowed to file via email and fax. So I have that information. What I would do is I would file something called a modification. That modification would be asking for your support to be reduced based on your lack of employment, unemployment, changing employment status, and that sort of thing. Why am I saying to do it now? Now, I know what you're thinking. These are lawyers just trying to get money. Of course, we're trying to get money, right? It's our job. But this is why I'm recommending it, because all of you know me, know I don't take your money if I don't have to take your money. That's why my office is small and my house is still the same house I had since I was 30. What I'm saying to you about this is that you have to consider that you get the filing date of when you file it. So the reason I'm saying it might be a good time to put some money towards legal fees during a pandemic, and like I said, if you can't pay for food, don't pay for lawyers. But the reason I'm saying consider legal fees is because you get your filing date. So let's say you've determined that you're going to be furloughed effective, maybe it was last week. And then you got another notice that says the business is closing altogether because we don't think we're going to be able to recover. We're not going to be able to pay our rent. We're not going to be able to get restarted. All of our food got spoiled, for instance. We can't reopen anytime soon. You know that you won't have a job, and you don't know when you'll be able to go out to get another job because we are quarantined, for instance. Look at what's happening in San Francisco, where they're asking them all to stay in. Basically, don't even leave your house. Okay? So if you're in a situation like that where something like that can happen, if you contact your attorney and have us file a modification of your support now, when the courts are reopening or when they're doing hearings, and they are starting to do some telephonic hearings, so we may even have the ability to do it over telephone or a video conference or something like that. When that happens, you will have an effective date of now. If you don't do that, let's say you wait until they reopen and you file in April, May, whatever, you're still going to owe the back support for these months that you didn't file. So that's why I'm saying now might be a good time to think, how much can I afford to go towards modifications or toward lawyer fees or that sort of thing. I am working on a couple of specials right now. I'm working on specials for people who need wills and trust estates, that kind of thing, because I think it's really important. If I get enough interest and if I get the right idea, I'll work on some specials for people who are unemployed because of in this and need child support reductions as well. But so as I talked about, if you are someone who is paying child support, first thing you want to consider is pay what you can. Pay what you can consistently, and file for a modification if you need it. Now, if you are someone on the other side of this and you're receiving child support, as I've mentioned, apply for public assistance. There is no shame in applying for public assistance. You should make sure that if you and your children qualify, that you at least get food stamps and possibly medical insurance, because your children will likely qualify for something. And if you need cash assistance, don't be afraid to apply. This is what you paid your taxes for. I just want to say that because I know a lot of people are very proud. I've talked to a lot of people who are have difficulty telling me about things going on in their lives, and I really need to know. But I am going to apply, and I'm saying it clearly. I'm going to apply because if something happens, I want to be already in line. Why do I say that? Courts are closed. A big chunk of my income comes from going to court. I'm a litigator. If I can't go to court, people can't pay me for court hearings. The things that I can do in my office, I'm currently doing, but I'm not going to risk my children's health and their ability to eat because I'm proud. So I'm asking you to do the same thing, right? Now, also, if you are someone who is receiving child support and you know that your ex cannot or will not pay during this crisis, in addition to applying for public assistance, you may also want to consider, what do I need to do? You want to be watching to see if they did file a modification. You want to be watching for lifestyle changes. I don't usually have to tell you this, but I have a lot of people who come to me, mostly women, and say, listen, he said he can't pay support. His support's $100 a week. We had 2 kids, but he got a brand new car. He owns multiple businesses. They're online, they're on Facebook. I actually saw that. The man had come in claiming all kinds of injuries. He couldn't work. He owned a home. I mean, she's renting and taking care of like 3 small kids. He had multiple businesses. I mean, pictures with his name on the business. He was advertising all 3 of them on social media constantly. We had pictures of the kids that he posted in one of the businesses that he claimed wasn't his. I mean, so many things. I've had another one where, the man was claiming he also didn't have any money. He didn't do this. And I mean, he had built a beautiful $500,000 house or more, had an enormous truck, and it was amazing. And what was funny, because when we got there, his support was maybe $400 a month, and I remember the support facilitator saying, well, what are your bills? Well, I have bills, I have this, I have that. Well, what about this truck? Because he's so proud of his truck. Yeah, my truck is $752 a month for my truck payment. I knew he was going down right then, because you're paying more for a truck than you are for your child. But hello from, I don't know where you're from. Is that Russia? Mario, well, thank you for joining us. But the important thing is, if you think that someone is trying to pull a scam or a child support scam during this time, keep your evidence. Be prepared to send it to me. However, if you were in that case, I don't suggest that you spend money on an attorney right now, right? And I see we have an accountant on the line, and she said, my mother always said when I be hesitant to file for public assistance, go get your money. Your mother was right. It's your money. It's yours. It belongs to us. People are afraid to take advantage of taxpayer programs. I don't understand. We're the taxpayers. We 100% deserve to get what we get. So if you have questions, drop the questions. I'm trying to answer them as we speak. If you just want to say hello to me, say hello too, because it feels so alone. Only my puppy is awake and my kids are, I don't know, ignoring me or something, or social sleeping, whatever that is. But with this COVID-19 crisis, we don't actually know what the courts are going to do. So let's make predictions. A child has an absolute right to be supported. And courts are going to be hesitant. They're going to be hesitant to completely cut off support. They're going to be hesitant to say the child can't be supported. However, the courts and the law also determine there is a minimal sustainable income. We call that SSR, which is the amount that a person needs to at least live, which means if you make under that amount, you can't even afford to pay support because you can't afford to support yourself. So what's going to happen is as people get into situations where they can't as people get in situations where they can't pay, the court is going to have to look at whether or not they have met that threshold where they're low enough that they don't pay support. They're also going to look at your ability to pay. And that's going to come into play with contempt. So the reason a lot of people are worried about this is because they've been held in contempt before. And contempt could mean 6 months in jail and $1,000 fine, or a purge amount, which is what the judge decides you have to pay. What you have to pay to get yourself out of jail, right? Nobody wants to go to jail in a pandemic because they don't have money because of a pandemic. So the courts are going to have to determine whether someone is willfully failing to pay. Now, I obviously think that there's a difference between willfulness and, inability. I'm thinking maybe a Zoom meeting, maybe a class where people can ask questions directly and we can see each other. If you think that's a good idea, give me a quick thumbs up or a like so I know that's something I should be looking into. If you think I should maybe do a Zoom meeting where we could have a face-to-face kind of over the computer class where people can ask their specific questions. Okay, I'm seeing a bunch of likes. I'm seeing people that want to do that. Let's set that up for next week, that we will do a Zoom meeting where we can talk specifically about your cases and what to do. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be developing arguments for why my clients should not be held in contempt of court during a pandemic. That is because there's only so much you can do. Now, let's talk a little bit about the classism and all of this. A lot of my friends and I are talking about we should work from home because we have those traditional middle class or upper middle class jobs where you can work from home, right? No one tells me what to do. I can use my laptop. I can use my computer. I can, all these things. Not every job is like that. I work with a lot of union workers. You can't do construction from home, right? You can't. You can't serve and be a bartender from home. What if it's between two states? Oh, Josie, great question. Great question. Two great questions here. If it's between two states, we're going to have to negotiate because there's an interstate compact. So we may be opened in one place and enforced in another place. So if it's open here in Pennsylvania, we still control, but the enforcement happens in their different state, which means that there could be a conflict for how they're dealing with people who are affected. Tanita, also a great question. A lump sum. There's something called a protective order. If he's getting a lump sum severance amount, and you have a protective order in place, then they're supposed to hold a portion of that and not give it to him. If you were in that situation and you need a protective order right away, send me an email, text, something, call me later, and let's see if we can get a protective order filed so that you'll still get your share of the money. Now, why is that important? Because even though someone is going through a pandemic and they may need their money, their kids also need their money and they need to eat. So if you have, for me, for instance, if I was getting a lump sum, let's say I'm getting $5,000, just easy math for me, and I'm usually supposed to pay $500 a month, for support. Well, obviously, I don't want to say take my whole $5,000 and pay my 10 months of support out because I need something to eat. But what I do want to do is make sure that I make some kind of payment. Maybe I make $1,000 payment and say, listen, I don't know when I'm next going to be able to pay, but I want, 20% to go to my kids. Something like that. There are some people who don't do that at all, quite frankly. There are some people who don't think about the fact that their kids are eating or haven't eaten or whatever. Or there are people currently waiting for lump sums from workers' comp or for something else. And those people have an issue. Yes, Mike, you're right. If you pay cash, now you probably do have to pay online. And they do charge a percentage. Have they waived that percentage so far? No. They're still trying to make money. Now, let me be clear. Some of the reason there's a percentage, for instance, in Delaware County when we file online, is because we use PayPal. PayPal charges 2.9% plus 20 cents, I think. You don't all know this because a lot of you will pay me electronically, and I allow it and I encourage it. But every payment you give me electronically, a portion of it I don't get to keep. But I still provide that as a service for my clients because I want it to be easy for you to pay. So I lose money, theoretically, every time someone pays me online, but I still accept online payments. The county, however, isn't a government entity, and they're not losing any money at all. The state is not losing any money anytime anyone pays anything. So even as an attorney, they now require us to file our annual license updates online. And guess what? We also have to pay the fee. And I was like, I used to send you a check and I'd have to pay a fee. I just pay that 40 cents. I don't know how much stamps cost, whatever a stamp costs. And now they require us to actually pay that additional fee as well. So yes, it feels like a scam. But what you want to do is make sure if you can pay, you continue to pay. Mike, I'm addressing you and people like you specifically. You have a job that is largely involves you being indoors and going into other people's space and houses. You are going to be severely impacted by this. You're going to be impacted because you're either going to be unable to work because people won't allow you in, or you're not going to want to go in because you want to keep safe and you share custody with your kids and you want to make sure they're safe. You don't want to bring anything back to your house. Hey, Aisha, got to see someone from domestic relations watching because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Domestic relations still has a skeleton staff in, and some of my friends are in there today. And one of the things I'm saying is, since they have a mechanism set up, if it's an emergency, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fax and email in my petitions. Whether or not they get handled, I don't know. I am also going to let them know I'm available for telephonic hearings and for electronic video conferencing hearings as well. Why am I doing this? Because our job is to protect people, and I want to protect people from all situations. I get that there are people on the front lines right now fighting wars, and there are people on the front lines right now in hospitals. I honor them. I think that what they do is amazing. But I also remember that what I do right now could protect people in the long run. Keeping people from going bankrupt and going homeless during a pandemic is something the law still has to do. We still can't allow people to be kicked out on the streets in the middle of this. I still can't allow people to have no money for food in the middle of this. I still can't allow people to sit in jail, especially when they're not guilty and they need to get out in the middle of this. I have never violated any rules. I don't violate, there's an order from the governor. I don't violate things. I'm always been a very good girl and now a good woman. But I'm honorable. And if I have to violate the dictates about not working to protect people, I'll do it. Because at the end of the day, we are the last line between people and their rights. And so I still work, and if I have to go into the courts, I'm going to carry my hand sanitizer and my wipes that you all know I carry anyway because I'm a little germaphobe. So this is my Olympics, but I'm going to do it. But if you are in a situation and you feel hopeless, now's the time to contact me or another attorney. And I'm not just saying me. I think I do great jobs for my clients. I love doing great jobs for my clients, but other attorneys have the ability too, but they may not be as tech savvy as me. They may not be doing live videos. They may not understand how all this works. So if you have a great attorney, remember, we're small businesses, and that's another thing. I know I told everyone I'd be done by 12:30, so I'm trying to help and wrap up. We're small businesses, and for all of you who are small business owners like me, there are things you can do to help us right now. For those of you who've gone to Yelp, Google, Facebook to leave reviews, thank you. That lets people see me. That gets my name out. They're helping. Thank you, Josie. They're not me, but there are other good attorneys besides me. But leaving those reviews helps us get our name out. Watching these lives, that helps, right? You help me, you get me to be more popular with other people. Google populates my information more. ultimately I can make more money, and ultimately I can help more people, right? Also joining our newsletter. I know many of you have done that. Joining the newsletter. I do try to be honest, and that's why I told you, if you are not receiving child support right now, don't spend your money on an attorney. Don't waste your money on us. Do things like contact your case manager. Contact your case manager, because they may be able to help you figure out what's going on. Having some tea, sorry. Also, if you can sign up for our newsletter, mention that, yay, sign up. I'm going to do a new one probably by this weekend. Tell your friends and family about us. Have them follow us on Instagram, Jones Associates Law, Twitter, Jones Associates Law. That's JonesAssociatslaw. On Facebook at Jones and Associates Law PC, and also on Pinterest, which I don't do as much. There as well, Jones Associates Law. Follow us. And wow, there's so many things. And hire us. If you do need help and you can afford it, hire me. I will do it. One of the things I'm working on now is some specials for people who need wills and power of attorneys and trust. I will be talking to you about that shortly, because I think it's really important that you be planning this, especially if you are a parent, especially if you have anything you own that you need to deal with. I think you should be planning that in this pandemic. In addition to that, I'm also going to be training you on how to do some things on your own. No, everyone should not do it on their own. And no, it may not be as good as me, but everyone cannot afford an attorney right now. So I'm working on resources to add to my website. I'm adding a whole new part. Yep, Jones Associates Law, that's me. I'm adding a whole new part of my Mychester Lawyer site, www.mychesterlawyer.com. A pandemic page. It will be under resources. I've started it. It's going to include things like some of the court orders. It will include these videos once I get them up on YouTube, and it will include just other information as I find it. So you have one-stop shopping to find out things that are going on locally as it relates to the pandemic and as it may relate to your case or cases. And, you know, those are the things that we're doing. And I'm hopefully going to do more lives and probably Zoom meetings. So we've already said we're going to do a Zoom meeting about child support, answering and asking specific questions. I am working on a custody course. I think, Mike, you know this, that will be available on my Kajabi platform. Ultimately will cost money, but I'm probably going to do it for free for a little bit. Some of my pre-planning custody stuff for free, because we're all in this together. And, you know, I'm home. I'm not paying my electric bill right now. I'm cool. I don't need the money. No. I am unfortunately still dealing with my kids. So I told them I would pay them to do a report. I'm sorry. I just need them to be smart. So I told them I'd pay them $5 a report, or give them credit so they can order something on Amazon. Whatever. I'm that parent. I just need them to keep working. I just need them to keep working. So all of you who have joined me, thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for what you said. If you have any other questions, you want to drop them in right now, I'm going to let you drop them. While I'm waiting for questions, I'm just going to give you a couple of updates on Delaware County courts and local courts. Thank you, Josie. God has blessed me with all of you as well. You have all been great. But let me give you the updates while you guys are typing your questions in, and I'm hoping to get more questions. Update number 1, the governor of Pennsylvania has declared that all non-essential businesses be closed. That includes lawyers. Even though my physical business is closed, I am still open for business virtually. That means I do, hey Aisha, I appreciate you. I do Zoom meetings and telephonic meetings. You can now schedule a meeting with me online directly from my website. I added that. Under Contact Us, go to Appointments. You can now do that. That's right. By any means necessary, we have to keep helping and working. We are adding a pandemic page that will have additional resources that will be under my resources on my Mychester Lawyer page. The governor has asked for us to not quite shelter in place, but we are close to that, and I expect that to be coming soon. As an educator, I'm also working, so please look at your local school districts and notice that they are giving food. In our district, we are giving breakfast and lunch. For students, it's a grab and go. You can go during a set time at each of our schools, pick up the meal for the next day, and and be ready for that. Josie, thank you. You just take care of yourself. I don't need anything, but thank you. So remember to get food where you can for kids. There are online resources for children who need education. I'll probably just add that to a blog post, some of these resources, because I know that parents are feeling frustrated with the state of their child's education, and we're not meant to be homeschool teachers, none of us, for the most part. So I understand that. Also, the Supreme Court obviously issued an order closing courts but all but emergency things until April 3rd. In Delaware County, our judge has issued a specific order closing most things until April 14th, which I hear is a Tuesday, which means it may go longer. That means that we are going to be on skeleton crews and emergency means only. There are some emergencies that are going. There are some things that I may be involved in. I try to stay with my children as much as possible. But please know that I may end up having to go in if we can't handle it telephonically. So I would just ask for your prayers and thoughts as we continue to do our jobs and try to do it in a way that keeps us all safe. But protects people who are vulnerable, because that's what our job is as attorneys. All things related to the emergencies that we've been talking about, thus far they've not all happened, but we are still dealing with planning for the election. The primary is April 28th here in Pennsylvania, and remember, it's not just the presidential primary. There are other offices, local senators and state senators and state representatives. There are primaries going on all around us. We can now vote by mail. It's going to be the very first year in Pennsylvania that we have full voting by mail. I would urge you to go online and apply for a mail-in ballot. We are now in our county and several counties around asking for them to push back the primary till June 23rd. I think June 23rd, because it is a day where we expect schools to be out and where it will allow us enough time to hopefully flatten the curve. But in case it doesn't happen, be prepared to vote by mail, because voting is so important. As you can see, how your local, state, and national representatives handle this crisis has meant, well, it's meant everything. Some of them have been better than others, and I'm going to leave it at that. But for all of you, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm a little bit behind the time I promised you, but I wanted to make sure I had time for all of your questions. Now, if you could just do me a favor, besides sharing this and liking it when it goes up, please, please, please give me more topics that you want to talk about. I'm trying to get to all the ones that all of you have asked me about, and I'm also working on some podcasts that some of you have asked me to do as well. So again, I'm Jackie Jones of Jones & Associates Law, PC, your family fixer. And from my living room, which I now want to repaint and redo because I've been here so long, from my living room and to yours, thank you for joining us today, and you have a wonderful day.